Good morning to you. Let's see what's in the papers for you today with Charlie Rowley and Susie Stride. Good morning to you both.
Morning,
Charlie, let's have a look at the Times, should we? Britain, it alleges, has become the Western capital for Sharia courts.
Yes, that's right. And the number of courts that have opened is now up to about 85. And this is a court process whereby those of Islamic faith who are getting married can get divorced. A couple can get divorced by a man just preaching divorce 3 times within a court that is usually led by, always usually led by other men. And there's going to be a huge question.
It's not legal, that, is it?
Well, they're called courts, but often referred to as councils because they're not usually registered or adhered to within UK law, but obviously in terms of diversity and tolerance that we have in this country, because of those who have obviously lots of different faiths, they do exist in this country. But the question that I think many people will be asking now on the back of this story is about equality, is about fairness, is about the rights of women and girls right across this country. You know, this goes into, I think, and will be, I would have thought, play into Kemi Badenoch's sort of rhetoric as leader of the opposition about when she said during her leadership election campaign, different cultures having different weights attached to them, and some are more valued essentially than others because of the basis of equality. And when you look deeper into it, you know, when women feel as though that they are treated differently when it comes to marriage, particularly within Sharia law, where young women and girls are subject to marriages that you wouldn't accept in a traditional sort of, marriage in UK law, then I think that raises a lot of questions in this country about who governs Britain, what is right, what is wrong. Are we, I wouldn't go as far to say too tolerant, but are we turning a blind eye to potential abuses in this country, or where there is not the equality right across this country for women and girls when it comes to different religions? So religion is the question. Should religion trump equality and the values that most British people and British society hold dear?
Yeah, and the clear answer to that is no, and this is really important. You can't have a parallel legal system operating, and I think one of the things that makes this country great, is that, we are good around equality, we are good around human rights, and we are good around a whole lot of things, and you just can't have things like this, undermining it. I think it's very concerning for women, particularly because, actually a lot of the negative effects of this hit women, and so I think it's very concerning, and I think it's important that the Times has highlighted it, and hopefully they're going to do something about it.
I mean, it's just one of those. I mean, I've got to be honest. I know we all have views on Sharia law. I actually don't know enough about it. I don't know enough about Sharia law, but whether it's good, bad or indifferent, as you say, the point is we have a law and a legal system in this country. Yeah. Therefore, that should apply to everyone who's living in this country. Yeah. Regardless of religion, background or anything else.
Yeah, 100%.
But Susie, you're right to highlight the impact on women, because looking at this investigation, also discovered that that dating multiple people is so normalised that an app for Muslims in England, this is actually about creating wills. It has a drop-down menu for men to say how many wives they have, between 1 and 4. And then the app, which is approved by a Sharia court, allows half, when you're talking about inheritance, daughters only get half as much inheritance as their sons.
Yeah, I mean, you just cannot have this, in this day and age. The fact is there are a whole lot of, hard fought for rights, that have been fought for over many years in this country for women, and things like this, just send everything going backwards. There's another bit that talks about something like pleasure marriages, where a man can marry a woman, do what he wants to do, and then the marriage is off. I mean, you cannot have that. What message does that send any teenage girl? What message does that send? And so I think it'd be silly to not read this and feel very concerned by it.
OK, what about being concerned, Susie, about what we see in the Daily Mail, which, I mean, we knew this was happening, but the WASPy women campaigning for a long time, very concerned about what happened with their pensions. Labour, in the run-up to the election and for quite a long time, has said they support the WASPy women until they've got into office, and now they say, well, actually, they don't support them because they can't afford the payout. Or rather, we do support you, but we're not paying you out anyway.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's a difficult story, and, you know, what you're seeing here is that possibly Labour MPs, you know, there may be a bit of a small mutiny over it. I mean, look, ultimately, it was actually, I think it was predominantly 2017 and 2019, in those two elections, you had members of the shadow cabinet, you know, standing and holding these plaques, which, you know, because it's a very good cause, it's an important cause, you have to have compassion for it. But my understanding is that actually leading up to the 2024 election, people weren't standing and holding plaques because, you know, they now see that as a country we've got a difficult economic climate, and, you know, I think it is right to say, can you justify spending, you know, what is it? Yeah, you know, because what does that mean? Are we going to pull some money from schools, from the NHS? We're going to pull some money from here, from there, you know? So I actually think, look, these are the difficult decisions that you make when you are in government, and I think this probably is the right decision, you know. But, you know, I absolutely have compassion for these women. But, you know, I think, you know, for people to take Keir Starmer and a Labour government seriously, they do expect them to make sensible decisions.
Charlie?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And, you know, there was a lot of chatter on social media last night just making that exact point. You know, can you justify, you know, the £10 billion or whatever the bill would be in terms of compensation, taking it away from, you know, young working people today where there is still a cost of living crisis, and giving that to people who are retired, where an ombudsman has effectively ruled that, you know, there was plenty of time for people, albeit a significant change from retirement age for women between 60 to 65, but, you know, plenty of time to plan accordingly. But the crux of the issue and the problem for the Labour Party, if I can, is that it is just the hypocrisy. It is exactly that. It is year after year, and Susie was right to say, you know, it seemed to be top brass Labour cabinet minister, from Angela Rayner to Rachel Reeves to Yvette Cooper, had photo opportunity after photo opportunity, standing shoulder to shoulder with the WASPy women, saying, we will deliver justice, we will be on your side. You know, providing false hope, effectively, to all of those women who think that they are going to receive some sort of financial compensation, only for then a Labour government to be elected on the back of all of that campaigning, for the Labour Chancellor, who was, you know, was photographed multiple times, to say, oh, actually, no, we can't do it, I'm afraid. It just, you know, it is...
that is a problem, Susie, isn't it? I mean, that, you know, to take a step back, you have to have sympathy with the government to say, you know, they've got to make some very tough choices. But they shouldn't have they been irresponsible in opposition by just backing every cause to try and win votes?
I mean, look, my understanding is, look, when you go to Labour Party conference, you know, you have all these, like, little desks downstairs, and all the ministers, shadow ministers, go round and they do their bit to go round and support them and shake hands and whatnot, and that's really, really right, and I've done that myself. You know, and, you know, the point there is you're meeting with people and you're hearing about their causes, you're holding their plaque. But obviously when you're in the shadow cabinet, you're not necessarily making a financial commitment. And I think what is important to say here is we are talking 2 general elections ago and then 1 general election ago. This is not something that was leading up to 2024. Obviously, we also know the Conservatives weren't going to support this, you know, so it's not like there's this big kind of, there's a difference here in policy, you know, but, you know, I think ultimately I wouldn't call this hypocrisy, because I think, you know, we've been dealt a difficult hand when it comes to the economy, and therefore you make difficult decisions. I would be far more concerned if we were going to start pulling money away from schools and the NHS and other areas to fund this, you know. But it doesn't mean that it's not a difficult decision. It doesn't mean that you don't have compassion for these women. But I think, you know, unfortunately, these are the times that we're living in. We can't hand out £10 billion.
But I think, Ben, just on that point, I think that's why, you know, the comms has got to be right, because, you know, this Labour government, you know, it is so easy to attack them at the minute. You take, you know, the Winterfield allowance from pensioners. You're now sort of, you know, doing reverse ferret on, you know, contributions for the WASPy women that have had their change in pensionable age. And the Chancellor just went out to say, well, we can't afford it, and the Ombudsman's done a report, and, you know, terribly sorry, you know, but there you are. What should have happened is that I think Keir Starmer and, you know, Rachel Reeves could have said, look, exactly, it's basically what Susie has sort of articulated. we've campaigned for these women. We've stood shoulder to shoulder with these women for years and years and years over previous general election campaigns. We've asked the Ombudsman, or the Ombudsman has done a report. This is what it's concluded. I wish I could give, financial contributions because we've stood with these women. But we can't do that at this time because of the black hole, because of the finances. That's the tone that the government needs to be taking. But it's just completely lost its touch. And I think there is a wake-up call, obviously, for Kemi Badenoch to make sure that she doesn't make false promises as the leader of the opposition. But it is, I think, it's a burden on every major party political leader, the Lib Dems, Labour and the Tories, to make sure that if they're going to do something, or if they say they're going to do something, that they actually can commit to doing it, or they do it. Otherwise, you're leaving the door wide open to alternative parties. And that's why there is the surge and momentum behind reform, because people are just so fed up of mainstream party politicians not doing what they say they're going to do.
Yeah. And I think social media plays a role in this, doesn't it? Because all those pictures that you're saying at conferences and things, well, they're always there.
Yeah, exactly.
They're always there. So
they're showing at some of their websites.
They come back to haunt you.
Yeah, they're
a bit tricky.
Charlie, let's have a look at the Times, shall we? And UK soldiers poised to train troops in Ukraine.
Yes, and it's an unsettling time if you're following the conflict in Ukraine. Obviously, you've got President Trump coming in January. He was elected in November. Who said he could end the war on day one. There are always varying reports as to who is winning the war. I think the reality is probably that neither side is winning, and it is just something that's ongoing. So I think if there is a way to de-escalate, if there is a way out of it. Of course we stand with Ukraine. We want Ukraine to win. It is a victim of an illegal invasion by Russia. There's no doubt about it. And so if it is the case that, the UK can offer more in terms of not just finance, not just in terms of machinery and weapons, but by going into Ukraine to train more soldiers, to motivate more people who can sign up, who want to sign up, who want to defend their country and their freedoms, then that's something that I think John Healey is suggesting. But he's also not ruling out sending our own sort of boots on the ground, which, before anybody gets alarmed, I don't think that would necessarily mean fighting on the front lines, but whether it's sort of, holding positions, observation positions and things like that, it would be part of the conflict, but whether that escalates things, whether it actually deals with the problem,
I find it hugely disturbing.
Oh, okay.
Because you've got the issue of being dragged into conflict, and also, of course, our boys and girls putting their lives on the line for something which may be heading towards some sort of de-escalation anyway. If we knowingly have boots on the ground, either in training roles or anything else, they're a target.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a difficult one, but I feel quite strongly about this because I think, look, you cannot have someone like Putin, just illegally invading a country and us just, stepping back and saying, because what happens next?
But we haven't.
Well, we haven't exactly, and up until now we've done absolutely the right thing. But that's why I think it is important that this decision is made. We're not saying we're sending, troops in to go to the front line. We're saying we're sending troops in to actually help with, training up Ukrainian soldiers. I mean, interestingly, Healey says himself this is one of the most difficult decisions he's made. This is the only thing he's lost sleep over. And I think that's right, because I think these aren't decisions you just make on a whim. This is, a serious decision to make. But I do think it is important, because I think it is important that we continue to send, a strong message to Putin.
Timing is odd, though, isn't it, when we're talking about de-escalation, when we're talking about negotiation, and then you've got Trump coming in January talking about ending the war in a day.
Yeah.
To be sending in British troops now, it's...
Yeah, and look, I mean, I'm definitely not an expert in this area, but, ultimately, I suppose what they want their position to look as strong as possible for when those talks begin to happen, and I think it's really important that, Ukraine is in the most strongest position they can be as they go into those talks.
If a single British soldier loses their life, I think this is not worth it. But anyway, let us know what you think.
Susie, Charlie, thank you very much indeed.